Okay, hello to this last webinar, at least my last webinar, number 7 now, during our Keynotes 2020. This time it's about an overview of the functions of PlantExpressTools. So PlantExpressTools is one of our plant tools, and I will concentrate on some of those functions. If I look at the attendees list, all of you already have attended one of my previous classes, so I will just skip over it. And about my introduction and about auxalia and our locations. And you probably still know how I'm looking. Just for BJ, huh? Or Anya. Okay, so now I can close that. So just checking from time to time who's online. Okay, so this is the list of now 19 functions we have in PlantExpressTools. The ones I grayed out, I will not show. The other ones in black with the word demo at the end, I will show. But since I have still only 30 minutes, I cannot go in every detail of these functions. I also added some links to download the PlantTools brochure, which contains then all the detailed information of all of our plant tools, not just the PlantExpressTools. Then I, especially in well, not just especially, but for more information and some short videos, I recommend our homepage. If you switch to English, you go to Plant Tools, and then further down you see the Plant Tools. And if you click on Functions, well, now we have short videos for all Plant Tools, but for PlantExpressTools we have for each function video, or the long video which just has all the videos one after the other. So, but if you want to look at specific features, you can look here. 2 of them are missing. I have to actually create the videos for them. So these are only actually 18. Anyway, in addition, there is also the online documentation. There's a link in the PowerPoint also, and you can then look at detailed videos for all these functions, calculations, and so on. There are typically examples in the videos, but they are, sort of long. Okay, so these are the links here, and in this PowerPoint, which I will not go through now to the over the other pages, is the text from our brochure. So I just put it in there, so if you receive later or next week the PDF from that PowerPoint, you have that information there as well. I will just skip forward to the page, where I will later continue. And off we go with the presentation. And where is my AutoCAD? I already, that's 21, okay. And so I will concentrate on some functions, as I mentioned before. So we will start, let's close, it's still loading. Okay, let me just close that palette or panel from GoToWebinar, and let's have a look at, let's keep that here. Let's make that a little bit wider. I just have a full HD resolution for the webinar, so every palette is a little bit bigger than usual. Let's start with Project Manager. So in Project Manager, or why is there a plan, or let's call it Plant Project Manager. So it's our own project manager as part of PlantExpressTools. And the reason, there were 2 main reasons. One was in the original project manager, we are not able to extend the context menu with our own functions. We want to start from there. So we developed the Plant Project Manager, and of course we added some features which the regular Plant Data Manager, Plant Project, the regular Project Manager does not have. For example, you can edit the project properties right here in this palette. You do not need to go into Project Setup to edit the project properties. That was very annoying to a lot of customers because they had to go into Project Setup, and for that, everyone had to get out of the project and so on. Then for drawings, that's actually not the correct project. That's the one. So let me go here to my drawings. And let's select maybe this one. That was from my last demo. For drawings, you have various tabs. The details one you know from Autocad or properties. So these are the drawing properties you can edit. And the work history you are also familiar with. That's the work history Autocad Plant 3D creates. You can use them or not. And there is an additional tab for revisions. So these are the revisions and versions from the very beginning. So you see the history. The newest one was just during my demo 3 hours earlier. And so you can create versions and revisions. That's essentially what I will try to explain. So for example, create a version and a revision. So since I did create a version in my German video, I now do a revision. So for example, that the next one would be B. And we set it in a way, but that is up to you, that if I increase the revision, the version will start at 0 again. But you can also have it completely manual, then it's up to you. So new change, so you type in a text, you can later edit that text also, and you can use the version and revision also in the file name. So I will want to rename the drawing as well. And here it will create a backup in that folder here, and yeah, it automatically creates a backup, and this is the new file name now with revision B here. You see the description or the text I typed in here. Again, you can change that later on. You can also create versions or revisions of multiple drawings. That's also important to mention. So if you have, let's say, a bigger project and I don't know, 5 drawings have to be increased, you can do that in one go. And of course, it will increase the version or revision individually for each drawing or separately. Okay, then I click OK, and that's about it. Now it's renamed here, and you see it now. It creates a revision, but also a new version number, as I mentioned before. And yeah, you can click here and type in text if you want. Then the other big difference is that you can create new categories. Like I have here, I have a category for PFDs, or here that's for a customer. So you can do that and give your project, let's say, additional structure. Let me put it that way. Of course, folder you still can create. It's just about maybe you have some completely different type of drawing you want to handle. You can also define which of the tabs you actually want to see. So maybe work history handled by Plant 3D is not really of interest for you. Then you can turn that tab off, and you can collapse that so you don't need that much space. Eventually, I should open a drawing for the other features. Just checking here on my list of to have some. Okay, that's that's Plant Data Manager, so I will just ignore that. Okay, so the next, well, actually, set of features is actually the create list. So create list is a feature which generates all sorts of lists. Here, for example, we have an equipment list, which is used with some customers. Not everyone uses that, but yeah. Maybe for PFDs or in general, you want to have some kind of process data list. So again, that's just an example. And I also should mention what you see here. These are standard AutoCAD Plant 3D annotations. Nothing special. I defined them as you would do. The list function is essentially making sure that, for example, a header or a legend is placed if you want, and that then these individual annotations are also inserted automatically. You can define the orientation and so on, and where the insertion point is, you can have it on model or paper space. Here's some other examples for inline objects or equipment nozzles. And you can also create a list which follows another list with an offset, for example. So here I have an example to, okay, inline objects, then, I don't know, 10 millimeters distance and offset, and then the next list starts. So one follows the other. Yeah, so if I create, let's say, a new or insert a new symbol, it's much less creation, I will come to that symbol list in a moment. So I will create a new one. We need a tag maybe. And now what we see here is another feature of PlantExpressTools. It's the extended assign tag dialog. So with PlantExpressTools, you can add additional properties from the class, so a filter in this case, and you can define what additional properties you want to have when you assign the tag, which makes it very convenient for those properties you need or you typically want to insert when creating an object or inserting an object. So I want to have annotation, and okay. Never mind the coloring, that is a different topic. So now I want to update the list. You can set it in a way that if you save the drawing, then the list will be updated before that. Or what I'm doing here is I manually update the list. Actually, all the lists in the drawing. So now you have, what is it, F1, you have the filter here in order, of course, in the overall list. Okay, so this is the list function. And I explained a bit about the extended assign tag dialog, which we will see again. I will use, make it smaller. I will use now or show the properties palette also. The properties palette allows you to create additional or your own tabs. So by default, we have Autocad and PNID. So these are all the PNID properties of the pipeline segment. But you can create your own tabs. So for example, I created here one called line. And for each tab, you can create groups. And for each group, you can then define which properties and in which order you want to see them. So it's not necessary that you see all the properties. It's really up to you what you want to see. So here I have from the pipeline segment some properties like tag and typical properties. Then these are also properties from the pipeline segment, but I call them process data. You will see it in a moment. And then another advantage is that you can use related classes. So the pipeline segment, of course, is part of a pipeline group. So there is a relationship. So we offer in our properties palette that you can also select properties from the related class. So here you see group data, which you typically will not see with the AutoCAD Plan 3D or AutoCAD properties palette. To edit the group properties, you actually have to use Data Manager. Another example, I will come back to that line, is equipment. So if I click on an equipment, here I have equipment data and more technical data for the equipment, but also the nozzle data. And here you see all the nozzles and you can actually select them and you see the properties, at least the ones I want to see. And you can select and of course can override or edit those properties as well. So you can have them horizontal, the tabs, or vertical. And there are a lot of new additions to that I have to skip over because of time constraints. Okay, coming back to the line. What I want to show also here, I think I have that, is, no, I don't have that here. So here you see now just another example. Insulation thickness, maybe 50. So that would be another example, maybe hot. Okay. And yeah, you see that here. So what you see is that the size is missing. And I have here an example, and it's really, cannot stress that enough. I'm not a process engineer. This is just a simple example of calculating the size of a line. So I use flow speed and flow rate, and then PlantLink and PlantExpressTools do the rest. So PlantExpressTools calculates for these two parameters. It calculates the, let's say, theoretical inside or the theoretical diameter you need, which of course would be the inside diameter of a pipe. So the next larger one is size 200, which is filled out now automatically. And you see here the outside diameter and the wall thickness, and that leaves that inside diameter. And then that's the pipe area, and that leaves this operational flow speed. So that's an example. Again, it's also in combination with PlantLink, but you can do real mathematical calculations. And I will give you a quick overview, or not overview, but how that looks, that one of these calculations here. But also what this calculation function is mostly used for, or most often used for, is to do some sort of string calculation, or yeah, you can call it that way. So for example, I have here this annotation, and you see the typical 4 properties: size, spec, service, and line number, and then insulation type, insulation thickness. And so what happens if I, for example, delete the thickness? The line annotation is adapted because it's calculated. If I remove the insulation type, that's also gone. And so what we show here in this annotation, that's again a standard annotation, but it's not using the tag property. It's using another property which I calculate. And so if I fill that out again, or maybe actually what I do is I will show you here where we see all the properties. And here you see the tag, that's a regular tag. And here you see the line annotation I calculate. So if I, where are my line? I'm looking, I'm blind apparently. Ah, there it is, insulation thickness. So if I also, whatever, type in something, you see here it's calculated now, and the annotation is using that property instead of the tag property. Sorry. So this type of, let's say, string operation is or appears in almost all projects. There's always some case where you can use it. And so that's very convenient. And to give you an idea on how that looks, so here we have this feature, excuse me. And so let's start with this calculated size, which I showed first. So maybe I start from the beginning. So here we see, okay, that's for the pipeline. First of all, it's for P&ID. You can also do it for 3D. So pipeline segment is the class where I want to do some calculation. That's the property I want to calculate. That's calculated size. And again, of course, you have all the properties. And I should also mention, maybe you recognize that the filter changed to red. You can also calculate AutoCAD properties like layer and color for BASF. We calculate the hyperlink and set it to their intranet document system. So if they type in a tag for an equipment, assuming it's an existing equipment and there is documentation, then we type in the tag, and then based on that, the hyperlink is calculated. So when they create the PDF, they can click on the equipment or the equipment list for that piece of equipment and a PDF opens, for example. So that's another possibility. But so this is the property I'm calculating, and this is the formula. And there is something, the square root and some division and multiplication and some rounding. So you have, first of all, you have, as you, for those of you who are familiar with this expression editor we use, well, it's even available in Report Creator, but of course in multiple of our Plant tools. And so you have all your, in this case, pipeline segment properties available, because I do this for pipeline segments. So these are all the properties for pipeline segment, in addition to the AutoCAD properties. And then you have like mathematical functions, date and time functions, string operations, and some logical functions. We actually also created some of our own, which are helpful for some customers. So this is more like a mathematical calculation, not more like, it's a mathematical calculation. But here, this is the example for the pipeline, for the line annotation. So here, again, I calculate that property for pipeline segments. And this is the, well, not, well, that's the expression. It's not a formula in that, in that sense. So if insulation type and insulation thickness are filled out, what I'm doing is, then I will add use tag plus a delimiter here, then the insulation type, another delimiter, and then the thickness. If thickness is not given, then I use tag and a delimiter and type. And if insulation type is not given, then I just use the tag. So this is here, and you can also do some formatting, so it's nicer to read. Otherwise, it would just be a lot of long text. So, and there is just no end in possibilities. I cannot go over each of the ones. So, but yeah, as you can see, the size here is now calculated, it's filled out. And this is the calculation. And so the next item on my list is the selection lists. Again, we can use the properties. I will go here. So here, let me just see if she's online. No. Oh, Carlos is online again. Hi, Carlos. So from a Danish customer, I have, so oh, that's actually not the, anyway, so we have this list here from a German customer. They have the 4-digit number for the service. So I can select something, and that actually, you see some color changing. That happens because of plant link in this case. You also see that here under comment, I put in some of the lines. That's also done by plant link, but you have this list here. That's actually the point I want to make. 1,000, for example. So that's the service. But sometimes you have these selection lists. And as you probably know, if you want to, let's say, maintain that selection list, you want to add new properties, you want to delete property or values from that list, you have to go to project setup and yeah, edit them kind of, well, depending on the length, tediously or not. That is one use case. So what you can do is you can use PlantExpressTools, and you can actually use X and import selection list and then export them to Excel or a text file, then modify the list and import it. But there are use cases where customers want to maintain their selection list in Excel or some database table, or could also be a few, but in a database. So because it's more convenient, maybe that list, that Excel list is supposed to be used for all projects, or at least for a lot of projects. So you just want to maintain it externally. Maybe someone is responsible for that. And it's not just about service, of course. That's just the example I have here. Can be any sort of list. Maybe you have a list of pipe specs for PNID you want to see, and maybe there's some change in the project. So you maintain the pipe spec names in Excel, and you want to, of course, then eventually refresh the selection list in your project based on that external Excel sheet or database table. So on my project here, I have two different service lists. So I use now one from my Danish customer. I disabled one and activated the other one. So just so you get an idea, so this is the page where you configure where the database, or in this case, it's a SQLite database. Actually, that is the German one. Let's see if either. Not quite. No, actually, that is correct. So now we get the Danish one. So again, I can set it in a way that if I save the drawing, that this then updates the selection list in my drawing, or in my case, I do it manually. So then I get a message. Hello. Yep. And now if I look at the list, now I have a different list. Now it's Danish. I hope you can read it. There will be a test. No, just kidding. Okay, not quite sure. I think I do not map here. So here, but what you can also, well, that's Plant Link. So the color, for example, changes. Does it or not? Anyway, so this would be kind of a dynamic, if you want, a dynamic selection list with PlantExpressTools. Okay, now what is left? Oh, it's three. Is the bold calculation. I showed this on Wednesday. Let me just open that. So I already have some here. Let me just insert another valve. And we keep that open. Let me just close the, first of all, I need to shrink that spec viewer, keep that open. Okay, so let me find a reasonable spec. Does not really matter, maybe this one. Okay. So as I mentioned already on Wednesday, the bold calculation we provide with PlantExpressTools is completely independent and has nothing to do with the bold calculation or the, if you could see that, if I could turn on my webcam, you would see my air quotes. So the bold calculation of Plant 3D, which is not really doing anything good. Especially it's really not, in regards to configuration, it's just not a good solution. And one of the earlier product managers of Plant 3D once asked me in my car if I can tell him how the Plant 3D bold calculation works. So anyway, that's just an anecdote. So what you see here looks like the bold set from Plant 3D, but if I look at the properties, that's actually not the one I wanted. You will now see, for example, it's in English. So M16 times 70. So you see the bold set information. You see, okay, M16 times by 70. You can use that, for example, in a report or in ISOs. And the number of sets, number in sets, it's 8. And what you see here is the actual calculation. So you see 20 from the valve, 2 from the gasket, 20 from the valve flange, then the nut, the washer, another washer, and add on. So that's the protrusion of the pipe. Of course, you can use stud bolts or lug bolts, or here like machine bolts, anything. You can have valves, which, yeah, it's all sorts of combinations. We are pretty sure we covered everything. And you see the theoretical length would be 66.8. So the next available length in the catalog we provide, and you can of course extend that, is then a 70 millimeter bolt length. Of course, inches are also supported. You can actually, we just had a customer, you can also have, let me think about this. You can have bolts in inches for the diameter, but the length in metric. So also possible. I think we covered everything. What you also can do is very easily make a change. For example, typically for my presentations, I don't use bolt sets. I use single bolt parts. So I just switched to single bolt parts. Now I have bolts and washers and nuts. And that's about it. I will also, well, I leave English. In my German, I switch to English, but if I switch now to German, I think most of you cannot read it. So I leave it to English, but I could change the language, for example. And now I need to recalculate, and the recalculation can be done for a specific or for a pipeline group or for a pipeline you have, or you can do it for the drawing, which I will do in a moment, or you can do it, let's say, for a category. So let's say all the 3D drawings should be updated because you made some, let's say, major change. And so, but I will, the other drawings are empty anyway, so I will just run. You get kind of a preview of the drawings, which is just the one, and then all the line numbers, which will be updated. So I will see only that one line number, of course. So then you get this, and it runs through. And now what you see, 3 connector symbols. And the one in the middle is the bolt, again, M16 by 70, but yeah, you don't see anything else. If I select the other one, and this is why we have 3, so you can select them with your control key. Now here we have the nuts, M16, and that's the washers, M16. Of course, we have 16 washers and 8 bolts and 8 nuts. So the calculation is done in the bolts. Now we don't have bolt sets, we have bolts, but it's the same calculation. And this is how the bolt calculation works. And another question, is there a way to completely suppress bolt? Okay, so there is a question. Stephen asked that already in the German session, but there it was about ISOs. So the original question in the German session was, can you suppress bolts and gaskets in the ISO? That is possible. And now the question is, can you suppress bolts and gaskets in 3D? I would assume so. Bolts, definitely. Because that's a setting. BJ, if it's okay, I would turn on your microphone. Maybe you can answer that also, but I would assume, or maybe he's already offline. Oh, BJ left me. Let me just, apparently he's gone. No, there it is. Hey, BJ.
Hi, good evening or good afternoon. I'm still here.
So
what's the exact question? So
what is it possible in 3D to do not get a gasket and bolts or bolt set?
Yeah. What you see a lot now in real practice is that you buy a valve and the valve has an integrated gasket. That means that you need to create a new end connection. And then at this new end connection, you can tell it, okay, but I want to have this end connection, but without a gasket.
Yeah. So here you would not. So here you see modify. Come on. You see that you get a, well.
So if the nominal diameter and the pressure class and the facing is correct, then he should place a bolt set and a gasket. Yeah. You can create your own new end connection where you can say, oh, I only want to have a bolt set but no gasket.
Yeah. So
that's what you see a lot with wafer valves.
Yeah, they come with their own gaskets, for example.
Yep.
Yeah. So it is possible. It's a matter of configuration in where I just was in the piping connection settings. I think it's where I just was. Okay, I hope that answers your question, Stephen. And that concludes my presentation. Well, actually, I have just a few slides, always the same. Let me just open them. So just again, want to mention that there is a blog in English and in German, but you are mostly interested probably in the English blog. On our Auxalia homepage, just switch to English and then go to Plant blog. And then that actually is the agenda for all the sessions. So yeah, never mind. That was the last one anyway. So yeah, thank you for your attention. And as I mentioned in all the other videos, the PowerPoint as a PDF and the video will be sent to you at the beginning of next week. That's at least what my marketing people told me. And otherwise, oh, there's a new question. Oh, yeah. Hi, Carlos. Yeah, have a nice weekend. We're in Germany. We have 3 days now off. Monday is also a holiday. And yeah, I hope to talk to you soon. Bye, and have a nice weekend.